multiverse and possible dimensions are, but rather a series of higher and lower heaven and hells. The second thing is that spirits are intermediate between God and humans, so the divine sometimes uses them as a means of communication. And of course, that's his theory for why we have mediums. Even though he believed in this, he also warned people against it, and of course, from then on, people started to imitate his acts. Next, we have Franz Mesmer, born May 23rd, 1734. He was a German physician with an interest in astronomy, who theorized that there was a natural energetic transfer that occurred between all inanimate and inanimate objects that he called magnetism animal, and the other spiritual forces always grouped together as mesmerism. Mesmer did not contribute any religious beliefs, but he brought a technique later known as hypnotism, that this was claimed could induce trances and cause subjects to report contact with spiritual beings. The evolution of Mesmer ideas and practice led to a Scottish surgeon who basically gave hypnosis what it is, and of course, we get mesmerized from this. And of course, hypnosis is used very widely now, very much accepted. People start using hypnosis to understand past life regressions. I have a theory on what that's about, and other things that were dealt with them during either subconsciously or possibly with spirits. Spiritualism continued. In the late 1890s, it was claimed that the religion had 8 million followers collectively in the United States and Europe. The count was mostly from the middle to upper classes of those regions. And that's also kind of funny too. If you look now, many people who believe in certain types of metaphysical beliefs, like Reiki, and of course it's not all people, but it tend to be people who are in the middle class and have a little money to spend on like a $400 class or something like that. If everyone's ever looked into that, these classes are not cheap as well. So maybe that's another reason why this has continued with those types of classes. The peak of the belief system was roughly between the 1840s and the 1920s. New York during this piece was a huge centralization of this popularization. Actually, a lot of cities that were starting to collect spiritual followers actually ended up finding cities for these people to go ahead and start their commune in a sense. If I'm correct, New York has a few. I can't think of the names right off the top, but they're one of the founding states with cities that were made for the spiritualist movement. This also could have been because of the claims of the Fox sisters. And the reason for that, on March 31st, 1848, and the claim for the popularity of spiritualism. Many claim that this was the beginning of this religious movement. The sisters on the date in Hyattsville, New York, reported that they made contact with a spirit murdered, the spirit of a murdered peddler who was buried in their cellar. And Kate and Margaret Fox, they were 12 and 15 years old when they made claims of communicating with the spirit. Convincing their family and friends, there was actually 3 sisters, and they convinced the older sister that they were dealing with the ghosts. Convincing their family and friends, they became a sensation of the town. First gaining popularity with radical Quakers during that time. Actually, many people believe, well, I'm actually going to get into it. Many people believe that the Quakers, Mormons, and there was one other group, I want to say not Lutherans, but the Mormons and Quakers during that time were actually having kind of a revitalization of what they were believing. And some of these followers ended up kind of spilling over into spiritualist movement. So that's probably another reason why the movement has grown so much, because other people kind of getting in contact with these spiritualists and kind of seeing what they had to offer. Because of their gift and public acceptance, many believe that this is what gave way for others to come out and possibly imitate it and scam us to flood the public. In 1888, Margaret Fox confessed that the whole experience was fake, publicly announcing and showing their methods. Many believe, even after the confession, that they really did communicate with the spirits. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, anyone know what he did? Sherlock Holmes. He wrote Sherlock Holmes. He actually wrote a few other things, but Sherlock Holmes is what was made him famous. He became a believer and a supporter of them during their prime. He also became part of many groups that investigated the paranormal. We'll also get into that later. Some can say that this also gave way to the modern ghost hunter. Many individuals during and after the height of the Fox sisters and spiritualist movement in general gave way to many scientists investigating these claims. The Ghost Club was one of these first organizations. Some say its roots began in Cambridge when a group came together just to discuss paranormal experiences, like many of us have. Founded in London in 1862, the group is considered to be one of the oldest of its kind. One of the earliest members was Charles Dickens, actually. It was also considered disbanded after 1870s due to Charles Dickens' death. Its main focus is to investigate the claims of ghosts and hauntings. One of the earliest investigations was in 1862, dealing with the claims of the Davenport brothers. It was later found that that was a hoax. In 1882, the club was revived by Alfred Alaric Watts and a medium named Reverend Stanton Rose. They also claimed that they were the founding members of the club. It was during this time that many viewed the newly found club as secretive and filled with convinced believers. Like I stated before, many scientists started these clubs and were more or less looking to try to debunk these paranormals. Not necessarily debunk, but at least report what their findings were, and of course a lot of them were frauds at that time. And during the club time, during this reign with the club, Alfred and Stanton Moses was actually very much into spiritualism. Some even said that Stanton Rose was kind of a medium. He kind of preached on these things. It was during this time the club attracted some of the leading minds in the psychic research field. A few of those members included Sir William Crookes, a chemist and physicist, Sir Oliver Lodge, another physicist, Nandor Fodor, all Chicago's old. Particularly, that area was predominantly Hispanic, blacks, and so on. I'm actually Hispanic. People haven't noticed. It really doesn't matter, but I grew up with a lot of folklore and just local tales. I don't know if anyone else has ever heard of La Llorona, which is called The Woman Who Cries. There got a guy back there. I kind of grew up with stories like that that originates in Mexico, and some say that the story kind of carried over into Chicago. So, like I said previously, I was really into this at a young age, and of course, I want to say skepticism, but of course, folklore and some of the traditions in that, kind of brought it up. One of my earliest experiences was in Chicago. It must have been about 5 years old, so I actually have a fairly good memory. I remember myself being in the crib watching my mother and father lay down watching TV. But I was about 5 years old or so, and my aunt was having a party. And for some strange reason, I'm towards the back end of this particular area. It was a little yard, and I was closer to the alleyway. And I got this feeling of a child. I also got some other kind of feelings, just more a sense of dread and whatnot. I'm 5 years old, I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. As soon as I was walking towards the back end of this little area, in the alleyway, I saw a woman with black hair and a pale face. It's stuck in my brain since now, obviously, since I can tell you the story. What I found out later on, there was actually a case, or I shouldn't say case, but claims of a little boy who had died in their house. Some of the neighbors I ended up talking to, which actually was one of my family members, and they told me that in one of the apartments, they were able to put dust or baby powder on the floor from, I believe it was the bathroom to the kitchen, and see footsteps from the supposed little boy. That's the only thing I could really base off that assumption at 5 years old. I found that out actually when I moved up here in Grays Lake when I was talking to my uncle. And just down the street, they owned a house. My uncle told me this. And one night we were there. I was living in Zion at the time. And we go to Chicago back and forth to visit family, so we decided to stay out there. Like I said, down the street from this particular experience I had before, the house was very dark. They actually had blankets covering the windows. I'm not sure why they did that, but the house was actually under construction too. So parts of it are a little kind of iffy looking. Right away, of course, I got a weird feeling there's something going on there. We were there for a while, and my aunt says, "Hey, you guys want to go to bed? Show us our rooms." And I decided to sleep in the upstairs bedroom, which was connected to the attic. And what was it, about 11 o'clock or so, I started falling asleep. And then about midnight, I had woke up to the sounds of someone walking from the, I guess what you call the attic part, where they actually stored their stuff, and come close to my bed.